What's up, summoners? King Blair here. With a new RTA season underway, we are also getting a balance patch that is going to be going live in 2 weeks with changes to some of the heroes. So what we'll be doing today is covering those changes, the things you need to watch out for, and whether they hit their mark or not, as well as the balance patch itself, and just discussing that. So if you like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and just go server, link down in the description. Without further ado, let's get right into it, starting with the balance patch, the size, and the units that they actually buffed. So overall, the balance patch size, again, it's a little bit on the smaller side, but what I really like about this patch in particular is that they also did buff 2 3-star heroes because they're all accessible to everyone. So that's really cool with Wanda and Commander Lorina, which both kind of need it, and it really makes them a lot better at both their niche and just overall better units. That probably is like some of the best buffs in this patch. Then we do see Melissa, who did need a tweak, but we only see Melissa as a 5-star. There's no mention of Sess or a lot of the other 5-star Covenant heroes that a lot of people have been wanting for a long time. It's a pretty small patch in that aspect. There's not that many 5-star Covenant. As far as the Moonlights, Judge Kise, we did expect it to be here, although as we'll see with the buff, I don't know if it's going to be enough. We'll have to see how she turns out, but I don't know if it's going to be enough for her. Archdemon Shadow, though, is looking really strong, particularly because of the artifact being Fairytale for Nightmare, which is the limited artifact you can actually get right now. So it is very interesting that they show this now, so you can actually get the artifact now. And if you have a Ameru, we'll actually talk with them in combination, because it's basically an Ameru buff, right? And that's going to be the patch, right? So pretty small patch. Which again, sometimes they do really big ones, sometimes they do really small ones. I'm surprised only one 5-star Covenant, but again, for the 3-star heroes, it's actually going to be really nice. Overall, really nice heroes that they picked for the 3-stars, but nothing too crazy on everything else, right? But let's actually get to the patch and talk, starting with Archdemon Shadow, who arguably is one of the bigger winners in this patch, not because of these actual buffs, but also because of the artifact. And we'll talk about that in combination, but let's actually start with Archdemon Shadow. So first, they fixed a big part of her, which is consistency. She had a lot of consistency issues. Well, now her S1 soul burn, you can soul burn it to guarantee yourself to land your seal passive. That is huge because now you can reliably seal a unit when you need to. A lot of the times when you soul burn, you weren't ignoring effect resistance. You were just still had the potential to miss. When you did this, you were only increasing your chance to 100%. So still, for the cost of 10 souls to be able to guarantee yourself a seal, it's really nice and does give her a lot of consistency in what she wants to do, and what her niche is to applying seal. The other part is that they also made it so Touch of Chaos has a higher chance of triggering, up to 40%. That means if the target is sealed, it goes all the way up to 80%. That's a really good chance to actually trigger that extra attack S1. And when she triggers it, again, she's getting to her S3 faster, which is a lot more dangerous, because the way that Ameru actually wins the fight is by actually getting to her S3 in higher frenzy and then just absolutely destroying your team. And then of course the S3, they made it even scarier. The S3 is her win condition. They added a decreased defense debuff to it, which is extremely scary because she gets a guaranteed follow-up right afterwards, as well as the 2 burns. So it literally makes it so if she gets to the S3 and she S3s you and you don't have immunity and you're not ready for that, you're going to be getting decreased defense, burn, and then she's going to follow up and just kill one of your units, right? Extremely scary, and definitely makes her really dangerous. The thing about it you might be thinking is, okay, King Blair, they just gave her a nice quality of life change, right? They just made him a little bit more consistent, which is nice. Why you're saying she's going to be significantly stronger now? Well, we have to go to the artifact buff to actually realize why Ameru is going to be significantly more scary, and it's because of the buff to Fairytale for a Nightmare. That's this F10 artifact, and instead of making it so it does fixed damage when it's not the target's turn, they also included extra attacks, counter attacks, and dual attacks. What the big part is going to be is the extra attack aspect, because this does make it so her S2 will trigger this skill even if it's her turn, right? So if it's her turn, her S2 just got a huge damage buff because it is considered an extra attack, right? You're just getting damage for free. The counterattack itself is also doing the extra damage. That means that if you counterattack on a unit, the counterattack does 1500 and then the S2 proc does 1500. That means you're doing 3000 true damage to a unit that you're counterattacking on, as well as just doing 1500 fixed damage to everyone on the board. And on top of all that, you also have a chance to dispel a buff, which makes it so you doesn't matter that you're changing out Levi Lin. This has become the best artifact for Archdemon Mercedes, Archdemon Shadow. If you really wanted to use Archdemon Shadow, a lot and you like her, you absolutely need to get this artifact right now that you can actually get it, right? Because if you don't have get this artifact, this is going to make what Ameru is going to make her really scary. Because not only are you getting Lila Violin passive on your counterattacks and your extra attacks, but you're also getting so much damage. Fixed damage is so scary in this meta. Every time you counterattack, you're doing 1500 on that S1 against the unit. And if you happen to get that extra S2 attack, you're doing 1500 AoE, just true damage, right? For free, as well as the damage that you're doing. So Archdemon Shadow really looking like she's going to be one of the scariest meta things, and might actually slow down the meta a little bit, because we've been speeding up the meta a lot, but with this unit against squishy teams, that is extremely scary. She does have a really good matchup into a Ravi, because you take away the healing and you also take away the CR pushing, and just overall she's a really scary bruiser. Now I can already see the Crimson Armin, Belian, Archdemon Shadow teams that are just going to be so toxic to fight against, that might actually switch us to being a much slower meta, since she still does have that 30% damage mitigation on her S2 passive. So now you have a unit that is both tanky, has a really good execution type finish with the decreased defense, it's more reliable, and on top of that is doing true damage every time you counterattack or every time you get the S2, even if it's your turn, right? So scary, so much damage. I really want this unit. I've always wanted her Team in Shadow. I really want her. But she's gonna be the biggest one. So there's the other ones. Judge Kise. The End of Evil is going to be her S2. They took away the strip from the S2, as well as the damage increase that the S2 had with the more enemies, and they gave it a decreased hit chance for 1 turn. Not sure if I like this, because you're taking away a lot of the damage that the skill did, and the decreased hit chance, it's only for 1 turn, which is so weird to me, because there are skills that apply way more debuffs for free, right? And this is just very little, right? Very this skill is not impactful at all. It's like, okay, you do some damage and the decreased hit chance, that's no extra effect, right? That's still very simple. They did move that though to the S3, and the S3 does have a lot more things now. You have a 80% chance to dispel a buff and increase cooldown 2 times by 1 turn, and you get skill nullifier once to the caster, and the damage increases with our enemies. So that's what the damage increase is. The part that is going to not be so great for this is going to be, you do get it to 3 times, right? So that part is really nice. Once you actually get her awakened, you do get the 3 turn. The thing about it is that it's 80% chance to actually land the strip. That's the part that's not really great, because you're doing it all at the same time. That means that if the opponent, for example, has a Fallen Cecilia, you have to strip 2 buffs and then hit the 3rd one, right? And I'm sure that's how it's gonna work, because it's saying each, right? So each of the hits has a chance to do this. So you have every single time chance to dispel 1 buff. But that does mean that if there's a Fallen Cecilia, you first have to strip that barrier, then you have to strip the immunity, and then you get the last hit to potentially reduce the skill cooldown. But all those things happening are going to be 80%, right? So it's not that reliable. The other thing is that it doesn't have any increased hit chance. It will still trigger counterattacks, right? So if they have a Belian may be triggering. If they have a Rem, the Rem's going to be triggering. Violet, if he dodges, nothing happens to him, and he counterattacks, right? So it's still, while it is, like, I'm not trying, it is a buff, right? It is definitely making her better, because you're losing that reliance on the soul burn for the S2 to follow up into the S3, and you are making her so she just has to S3 to actually do her role as a DPS unit. But at the same time, it doesn't do anything against a lot of the meta right now, right? Because if you do this into like a Ravi, right, you get a chance to get counterattacked, and if they have immunity, granted, they don't usually have immunity, so you most likely will land it for 3 turns. But against a bruiser team, this doesn't do much. You still have your old counters that are any speed opener, right? Any speed opener can still just one-shot you before you do your S3. It's going to be interesting if this is going to be enough, right? Because the fact that it's not 100% chance to actually strip does make it so immunity counters her a lot. And I don't know if just getting skill nullifier once is enough to make her survive more than 2 turns. So it's one of those things, and then the S1 only gives decreased defense, right? So it's one of those things that's like, this S2 effect, giving decreased hit chance. Yeah, okay, it's cool that she gets decreased hit chance, but like if you're soul burning, you're getting this and it's not that impactful. And you can still, again, you can still get counterattacked. You're only getting that one effect and you lost damage on the S2. The whole combo still probably is going to do the same amount of damage, right? As it used to be. So damage wise, she didn't get a buff. The one buff she got is she doesn't necessarily have to soul burn because she can open with the S3, dispel the buffs, and put the skill cooldowns, right? Which is nice, but she still has all her old counters, which is the scary part, right? Because the damage is the same, still has the same counters, which is why I don't know if it's going to be enough to actually make her meta, especially with all the counterattacks that are in the meta right now, as well as just how many booster teams there are where like her reducing skill cooldown may not be too scary. But again, we never know how it's actually going to look like with team compositions, what different cleaves are going to come up, especially with Ameru coming out. We definitely don't know how that's going to look like in the future. Maybe because of Ameru and the fact that you can just land that that initial S3 does significantly more damage and you do get that small skill nullifier. That might be enough with Ameru to actually be able to pop off. So again, doesn't seem like a lot, but it does make it nice that she doesn't particularly need to soul burn to do her job. I just don't know if it's going to be enough, right? Because everything else, it didn't get too much. Now, as far as Melissa, honestly, this doesn't do a lot. They gave immunity to the S2 and then made the curse land regardless whether the skill hit or not. This only really matters against Violet. And that's about it. And maybe Rylet, because then you have the chance, the 20% chance you don't have to put her on symbol or oath key, because you can give her book. You can strip the Rylet, and if you get unlucky, at least you're still going to be landing the curse. They really didn't capture the problem with Melissa, that is the fact that she has no protection turn 1. She's a full DPS unit that wants to be self-efficient because she's a mage and she's able to do all this stuff on her own, but is not going to get past turn 1 unless, and then if she's too fast, she may not have the damage necessary to actually do her job. So I wish that they had done so for the S2, or just for a passive, to make it so when a skill, like she gets immortality at the start of the fight, right? I would like to have seen that just to give her the potential to actually reach her damage. If they had given her immunity turn 1, kind of like BBK, it guarantees that she does her actual job, and it still gives her counters, but also makes her significantly better. So that I'm really, really disappointed with Melissa. I just feel like they didn't really capture the essence of what Melissa's supposed to do. So again, actually giving her immortality at the start of the game would have been better, but they just went and gave her immunity, which, I mean, it is nice because it makes it less easy for you to get provoked and get follow-up S2s, but it still doesn't fix the problem that she has to get to turn 1, right? She has to get her first turn, and again, it doesn't fix that aspect of her kit and of herself. But overall, I mean, it's a nice quality of life change, just not the greatest of a buff. Now we get to the buffs that I'm actually really excited for, starting with Commander Lorina. They actually made her one of the best PvE units. If you're a new player, Commander Lorina actually looks like one of the best heroes that you can actually build right now. Just because of how much single target damage she's going to be doing, as well as boss damage for Abyss. She's she's taking her role back as the PvE single target unit. That looks like what they're trying to do with her. So as we see here, this is going to be her S1. They added damage proportion to the target's max health, basically giving her like a Daydream Joker effect, which is amazing for Abyss. And it is so good on so many situations for bosses, right? For bosses, this is insanely good. They made her S1 actually really, really impactful. On top of that, they also, she still has the combat readiness increase. You got more defense, so you're a little bit tankier, right? Which, again, it makes it easier to actually gear her. You also get the combat readiness reduction of Spiritual Breakthrough. You get more CR push back, which, again, a lot of bosses are immune to these things, but for the ones that are not, it is nice that she does get that. But you also get the increased damage against boss and elite boss monsters as well. And it's just so many good buffs for her to be an amazing single target DPS, right? They added the extra damage based on max health. They added the extra damage for whenever you attack boss monsters with your S3. They gave her more CR pushback, and they made her a little bit tankier with the defense, which does mean that she can more easily get to the stat line that she wants and can survive more in a fight. It's a beautiful buff. I am super happy with this one. Smoggy definitely hit this one on the head. They made her really solid single target damage dealer. I'm really happy with it. I think they did a really good really good job, right? If you're a new player, this is really freaking good, right? This is really nice buff to Commander Lorina for everyone, for new players as well as old players that still are struggling with some PvE content. And then of course we have Wanda, who again is another really amazing buff, and she actually looks extremely scary. And this is probably one of my favorite buffs of this patch because again, it's a 3-star unit that everyone has access to, and it does fix all of her problems. It's like Smage knew what was wrong with her and they fixed it perfectly, right? So first, you get the combat readiness reduction. You no longer have to hit a targeted enemy. That just makes her S1 better for overall purposes, right? It just takes off the reliance on the debuffs. Always amazing. The other part is that you have a 100% chance to stun for 2 turns and decrease speed for 2 turns as well. They changed the 50% chance for unhealable. They just made that speed down, which makes so much more sense for her S3, because now you have a S3 that is stunning for 2 turns and decreasing speed for 2 turns. That essentially takes a unit out of the fight, right? If they have no way to cleanse that, that unit is gone from the fight for at least 2 turns. And Wanda can actually cycle her S3, and she's fast, and with the speed down, before the unit takes a turn, you'll be able to stun them again, right? So you're essentially stun locking one unit with Wanda, which is just so scary to actually think about, especially with what she can do. The other part is that she does have increased hit chance up to 70%. Again, this is amazing because now you can hit Violet and Violet reliably and all the evasion heroes. So they actually have a very strong counter to evasion aside from just a Hawk. So again, really nice for people that don't have a Hawk. Wanda definitely does the job just perfectly. The other part is that they took away her reliance on guiding light. She gets stealth at the start of the fight, as well as getting stealth after she has 3s, which she always had. So now you essentially do no longer need guiding light because you are getting that turn 1 stealth at the start of the battle. That is going to be just huge. Again, that makes her reliance on the artifact less likely, which means you can actually give her something like Misconfile that will allow her to actually decrease defense on her S1 as well as on her S3. And then the biggest buff to everything is going to be the extra effect that they added, where you can reduce the immunity and actually land your stun and your decreased defense. This is one of Wanda's biggest weaknesses because she just straight up lost to immunity, right? Because if they had immunity, you can't stun, you can't slow them down, you can't do anything. Well, now she doesn't need that. She can reduce the buff duration by 1 turn and then land the stun and the speed down. Why is this also really scary? Well, Wanda can actually soulburn this skill to ignore effect resistance. So you have a unit that can reduce buff duration, stun for 2 turns, get passive immunity, and with Misconfile also land a decreased defense and land speed down. She essentially takes a unit out of the game turn 1, and the only way to reach her is by breaking her stealth, right? That is so scary on so many levels. She looks like an incredibly good unit now, at least for Guild Wars and for Arena, but even for RTA, right? Just being able to lock down any unit in the game with the Soulburn, it essentially makes it almost like a Falconeer Clury. Almost like a Falconeer Clury because you don't get the guaranteed decreased defense, but you do have access to Misconfile. But the 2-turn stun is just so crippling, right? So it's almost going to function like a Falconeer Clury, which is going to be really cool for things like Rimuru because you can actually stun Rimuru turn 1, let him not get his passive, and he just becomes useless, right? And a Rimuru that can do his S3 is a useless Rimuru, right? And the fact that she has ways to reduce the S3 cooldown so she can perma-stun a unit, has Misconfile to be able to decrease defense, has a target debuff to be able to do more damage to other units, and just now also has a better chance to decrease combat readiness, makes her a really solid control option. And I'm just overall really happy with this buff. It actually makes her PvP viable, right? If anything, she's going to be really good single target stunner. For Guild Wars, she's going to be amazing because you can just take out any unit, right? In Guild Wars, you put her on, you're able to stun any target and essentially perma-lock them. And if they don't have AoE, she just auto-wins, right? You can just put her in, perma-stun, half stealth, and not even have to worry about dying. Really solid for Guild Wars, for Arena, and even for RTA, she's going to be pretty solid. So again, very happy with it. The last thing is going to be the artifact. Wind Rider now has increased attack by 20%, and then instead of 60% when you kill, it's 40%. This makes the artifact less feast and famine. Because the problem with Wind Rider that I always had is that you needed to kill to get an effect. So if you didn't kill, you didn't get an effect. But with this, you just get a raw 20% damage increase. So it makes it a more interesting artifact. I can't think of a particular thief that would want this over another thief artifact that we know of right now. But some people, it does allow you for things like Cess. Now, you know, for Cess, it is a buff because he does get the 20% at the initial S3 and does get the follow-up afterwards. I know some people were trying this with Kayron and we're having some success with Wind Rider Kayron. Again, this makes it a lot nicer because you do get that attack early on in the fight. Again, nice color light change, makes the artifact much, much better. And we talked about Fairytale for a Nightmare. Really, really strong for Archdemon's Shadow, but also for things like Counter Dizzy. I could see her being pretty interesting with this artifact. Again, because you get a chance to do fixed damage, and you also get the Leila Violin passive. It essentially just takes Leila Violin's spot for a majority of the heroes that were using it. Really good for Champ C. Honestly, just a really solid artifact now, because again, you're getting that fixed damage as well as the chance to strip, right? And the Leila Violin only goes up to like 80%. So it's a really good artifact now. So yeah, overall, the patch, if it wasn't for the 3-star buffs and the Archdemon's Shadow, I would have said it was actually not that great of a patch. Because it didn't tackle, like for Melissa and for Judge Kise, it did tackle some of their issues, but not their really core issues that they were having. So it doesn't really do too much for them. Again, we'll see how people try to push this unit. When people really like a unit, they will make her work. But overall, the 3 stars were amazing buffs. Like the buffs to Wanda and Rounder Wanda and to Commander Lorina are amazing. The buff to Archdemon Shadow, I didn't think she needed it right now. I could have seen something like Dilibit or Solitaria getting a buff. But the fact that they did Archdemon Shadow, along with the Fairytale for a Nightmare, really makes her scary. This will arguably be the biggest meta-changing buff that they do this patch, right? As well as Wanda, as far as PvP goes. For the other ones, I don't think they're going to make them that much more... they're going to be meta, but they're definitely going to be still usable, right? But Archdemon Shadow definitely going to be super scary as well as Rounder Wanda. But that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And that's all I got, and I will see you next time. Peace.